Okay, great. Okay, well, welcome everyone. We appreciate you joining us live or watching this replay on self-love. We are part of the Marble Wellness team. My name is Stephanie Corporal. I am the founder and owner of Marble Wellness, and today our presenter is our therapist, Margaret Clarke. Marble Wellness is a group therapy practice in West County, just down the street from Queenie Park, for those of you familiar with the area. And we provide therapy to really everyone in the family. So kiddos ages 4 and up. We see middle schoolers, teens, young adults. The core of our practice is moms and maternal mental health. So we see a lot of women who are pregnant and postpartum, but really love working with moms in any stage of their motherhood. I've done a lot of work with moms transitioning their kiddos to college. So really that motherhood lifetime span. We see dads, also men, couples, and do family therapy as well. So we like to sometimes call ourselves a one-stop therapy shopping for the whole family. We work with people on a range of issues, from anxiety, depression, to grief, chronic illness, substance abuse, and then just also kind of those life transitions, the things that are stressing you out. You're just looking for some processing and some people with some expert knowledge to kind of help you figure stuff out. So we see a lot of things, and we're always happy to hear from more people and get any questions answered. We can do virtual therapy. We also do park therapy at Queenie Park often. So we just love working with people and helping them get to a life that they feel better in. So today is a topic that is a big part of feeling better in life, and that's kind of how you can talk to yourself better, how you can feel better about yourself. So I'll kind of stop talking and let Margaret introduce herself and then just dive into the topic.
Yeah, thank you, Stephanie, and thank you and welcome everyone. As Stephanie said, we are talking today about nurturing that self-love. So coming out of that that realm of self-doubt and moving into that self-love is creating that positive self-image. So as Stephanie said, yes, my name is Margaret. I am an LMSW. I love working with people just through that path of discovery, right? Of whether it's a mom or it is a college student or a new dad, just really changing and molding what they view internally and how they can create it externally for them and what they view themselves and just like reaching those goals. So today we will be discussing creating that positive self-image. I'm going to let Stephanie bring up our slide and we can dive right in.
Okay. And Margaret, you just tell me when you are ready for me to move on to the next one, and I will scroll appropriately. We had a little bit of technical difficulty, but I still think we'll be a-okay for this. So here we go.
Sure. Yeah. So a little bit of today, like I said, we will be, let's see if we can go to a full screen.
This is the best I'm going to be able to do.
Oh, okay. If you do Command L,
okay,
it should get you where we need to be.
There we go. Learn something. Great. Thank you.
All right.
Amazing.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, fantastic.
So yeah, self-doubt, one way to think about it. So today, our map of today for this webinar, essentially we will be looking at that self-doubt piece. We'll talk a little bit about the hows and whys, that does come up in our lives. It is something that does come up with every single person where you have a seed of self-doubt. So we're going to look at that, but then also look at increasing that understanding and spend a little bit more time after we do that, challenging, like a way of challenging that self-doubt or negative self-talk, and then find out how we can recreate it and round out how we can, cultivate that self-love. Creating that positive self-image. Yeah, if you want to go to the next slide, Stephanie.
Oh, we touched
So
on
yeah,
this, but this is
we did touch
actually,
on this, but yeah.
this looks great, Margaret. I might have to steal this
Oh,
slide from you. This is fantastic.
no, no problem. Yeah, I think I was expecting you to say something a little bit about the practice, Stephanie, but I was just going to say like the way I like to view it as like the full spectrum of the human experience. We do start with the age of 4 and then it goes, I don't want to be cheesy and say up to 104, but really like to adults. So all of those life stages, all of those, as I said, the human experience. And yeah, as you can see, families, couples, and as Stephanie has said, even, I don't have it on the slide, I apologize, but men's mental health as well. So, yep, just a reminder. Yeah, you have it there. So,
And
yeah,
you do
we can
great
go
work
to the
with
next.
our men's mental health. You have been working really well with those male clients. So that's definitely something in your repertoire for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And I kind of chuck it up to I'm the only girl out of 4 children, and it was for me it was my norm having all brothers, and
Yeah.
um, yeah, it's something I really having like I really enjoy working with my male clients and just helping them as well. So,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Awesome. Okay, let's dive in.
Yeah, so that first piece of understanding self-doubt. Yeah, so what is self-doubt? So I like to think of it, well, as you can see, self-doubt, it is that feeling of uncertainty, maybe, maybe low self-esteem, lack of confidence in your abilities or yourself, who you are. Um, I was going to talk a little bit about an example that I have, and the example that, I was thinking about the webinar, was thinking about big things, big things that I've had as far as self-doubt. But the one thing that kept coming to my mind is the most innocuous situation that I was like, oh my goodness, yes. And I will give that example, but I wanted to kind of come from that mindset because self-doubt can come from those big life changes of like having a baby or starting a new career, but they can also come from like the smallest things. Like my example, where my self-doubt started coming up was I remember graduating university and I wanted to celebrate. So I decided just that I was going to host a dinner party. And it's the first ever time of hosting a dinner party, just a couple close friends, a few coworkers, and then of course they were allowed to bring guests. So leading into that, as that example, really excited. I had never done that before. I wasn't really at that point in time really skilled with my cooking, but I was like, I'm going to do this. I really want to do this. And it happened. It was beautiful. We prepared for it, everything, except I did not have the cooking skills right at that time. And so I remember ending the night. I thought it was a great success. But one of my friends said, one of my close friends, the next day, she was, reflecting on the night, told me all the positive things, but then she told me that when she was eating, she had a bite of food that had a veggie sticker on it. It's like, oh
Oh no.
no. And there was that moment of my seed of self-doubt, right? Because I
Yeah.
thought, okay, I'm going to do this risk. I really have this line. But learning that, oh my goodness, I forgot to take a sticker off of a bell pepper, really shifted and planted that seed of self-doubt in my ability. So essentially, just from there, I, my self-doubt, like just the effects of that. From there, I really, I had vowed, okay, never again. I'm never going to host. I'm never going to be really good at cooking. It will just, I'm going to have ramen for the rest of my life. And
I
so,
love that
um,
example because you're so right to, I think people maybe don't give themselves, I think self-doubt in bigger experiences, it's obviously still hard, but it's so good to realize that self-doubt can be just as impactful about these smaller things and can still get in there and really cause some issues. So I'm really glad you used an example that wasn't like doubting yourself at a new school or a new job or things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and as I said earlier, those things come with the territory, right? It's brand new, but this is something that it's a life skill. So everyone should be a great cook, right? So that was coming into it, right? And so just with understanding like the whys and hows for me in that situation, of course, that experience with my friend, that was kind of like my why I decided I wasn't going to invest any more time with, building my skills on cooking. So through time, I was able to, um, well, just with understanding that self-doubt, and it took me a while to come through, but recognizing those down, so the effects that I had, it really did push me away from cooking. But at a certain point, after a while, of course, life changes, and I really did want to have more than just ramen.
Yeah.
I wanted to have more than a grilled cheese sandwich. So just that desire to drive to become better at this really helped me kind of hone in on identifying, well, where is this coming from? Why was it so impactful? Is it keeping me from a goal that I have? And with that, it kind of sent me on a directory of changing that self-doubt. And with that so the key is self-awareness. And one way I like to remember self-awareness is, or think about it, is self-education. I personally love learning, and one component is like my own self-education, like learning about myself. And so that was my turning point when I was able to kind of examine even a small, of an example that I gave, just asking myself and being curious, well, why is this, and how can I, overcome and push through that? If you want to go to the next slide. So one thing, and this is it says challenging negative self-talk, and I want to emphasize the word challenge with dealing with that self-doubt. It can be hard, especially if you kind of spend in this realm of that negative self-talk, or you've planted that seed of self-doubt and has been growing for a while. Know that when you see that and you want to make that change, know that it will take time. It will take work. There will be setbacks, but if we start at point one, we will, we'll have a destination essentially. So just keeping with my innocuous example, during that time, like as I said, I reached a point where I'm like, never again, not going to go through it. But I, at the time, I think it was a good 3 years before I was like, okay, I can do this. And that was experiencing other friends, like having parties, having those experiences that I really wanted to host again. So I was able to identify, what was creating that negative self-talk. So noticing when those thoughts arise and able to put a label on that was so helpful for me. And that first step. The second step was questioning, was it really as bad as I thought? Was that time, thinking about the whole span of that night, was the whole night ruined because of that one single bite? So that was, just having that curiosity for myself and asking myself and reflecting on that really helped me dispel a lot of assumptions that I had created after that night. So really challenging that evidence.
Yeah,
So,
well, and I love that you just said, like, does that one thing even branch out enough to the whole night? Like, that's so, because we have a tendency to do that, right? Just kind of that all or nothing, and like, oh my
right.
God, and catastrophizing. And there's so many things that were happening. But I mean, how many, like, and I don't even know what level of cook you were at the time, but how many like great chefs could say, like, yep, last night I didn't peel the bell pepper sticker off. So, like, does
Yeah.
that actually mean you're a bad cook, that mistake happened?
Right, absolutely. And that leads right into, just that number three of like replacing that, that negative talk with positive talk. And yes, that was a thing that I had to do, like that question, like, does that mean that I can't be better? And really just that shift um, allowed me to look at it and say, well, I was a beginning I was a good
Yes.
beginning cook, right? And of course, it's not going to be the best. And essentially, I learned a lesson. I learned how to double check my veggies, right?
Yeah.
But it also allowed me just the platform of really looking at recipes and. But anyway, I digress on cooking.
Yeah.
But
No, I love
essentially,
this example. It's such a good one.
yeah. So I still think yeah, I just even with that replacement, just question it and realizing, okay, no, I was a beginner, but also, with that identification of, having that evidence as a tool, I was able to look at it as, I still remained friends with everybody that was at the party. I became closer with people, that were there, and just really that really subtle shift.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah,
Yeah. I
if
like
you,
this slide so much. I mean, I love the word challenging because it kind of shows that it's going to be a process. Because if you think of anything else that you consider challenging, you don't expect yourself to do it one time and then it's all fixed, right? So becoming a runner is challenging, or, training for a marathon, or doing, I go to exercise usually as my examples, but this shows that it's going to be a process, right? And I think a lot of times helping people view things as a process actually makes the outcome better, because then they don't give up so quickly, and they know how to kind of spread their resources to keep going at it. Um, and I would say that something really important here is the process isn't even just like a 1, 2, 3 step within 5 minutes. Like, the first week you're doing this might be just identifying the negative self-talk. Like, if you really aren't
yeah,
paying attention to things like that, you might just want to take a week and just pay attention to what your thoughts are. And then the second week or the third week, then you can start questioning it, because you got good at identifying and you've probably noticed some patterns. And then the replacing. So even this, I don't want people thinking like, oh my gosh, well, I've got to write this down so that next time it can come up. And I don't think that's what you were saying, but I really just want to take a minute to say, like, this can take a while. This requires energy. It requires a new way of going through things. And so some patience with yourself. But the other thing about identifying negative self-talk that I love, and you're talking about label, is it externalizes it, right? So in this slide, I don't know if I can go back very easily, but in the other side, you were talking about how self-doubt can lead to anxiety and depression. And that's really because we're just like holding it all in and making it an us problem, right? And here
yeah.
you're just automatically taking it out and separating yourself from the issue.
Yeah, absolutely. And just that distancing, like
Yes.
even having that separation, can be so beneficial in that shift. But yes, definitely that recognizing that it isn't a one and done shot. It is that process. I am actually was going to talk a little bit more about that a
Sorry.
little later, but I mean,
Sorry.
sure, no. I mean, it's just like this. It will
Yes.
be like this, right?
Yes.
So with any shift or with any change, with any goal that you have, just know that it doesn't always look like, okay, A, B, or C. I mean, sometimes it's just an alphabet soup,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah. Great.
I
Okay.
think I'm hungry. So
it is lunchtime. We should have told
yeah.
people to like bring a sandwich.
Right.
You want me to head to the next slide?
Yeah,
Okay.
please. Yeah.
Let's see if this is going to cooperate with me.
Okay.
Oh, that's not it. There we go.
Yeah. Yep. So really, so this isn't the next, or step one. It isn't the next step even. It's just part of. It's all has equal value, but part of dispelling that self-doubt is really practicing that self-compassion. And um, honestly, just self-compassion can be defined as really these four categories of really being intentional, of being kind to yourself, right? And oftentimes we don't really think about it a lot, but we can be our biggest critics.
Mm-hmm.
And so just even practicing, thinking of yourself as an observer or a third party, treating yourself like a friend, right? What would you say to your best friend if your best friend was like, man, I am just terrible, terrible at cooking, you know, a chocolate souffle. That's really extreme, but like I said, I'm hungry. Like you would probably say to your friend, no, like I think you can do it. Like whatever words of encouragement, right? So you would spend less time being critical on your friends. So if you are looking at yourself as a friend, right, you are your first friend. Often I like to think of it in that way, like I am my first friend. So if I'm not treating myself well, then how can others really learn to treat me the way I want to be treated? So that goes into self-compassion. The second is really acknowledging those feelings that yes, it is part of the human experience to have self-doubt. But so reminding yourself, I am human, like I am going to make mistakes. It's okay that I feel, I do feel, kind of low right now. I feel embarrassed that I wasn't a great cook in that moment. Validate those feelings because they are true, they are part of you. That doesn't mean that you have to hold on to them, even though you're validating them. And then give yourself, permission to experience them in a point in time. You don't have to, like I said, you don't have to hold on to them. They can be let go. But let's first honor them and validate them. And then that second part is practicing forgiveness, right? Forgiving yourself for making mistakes. It took me time. Like I said, it was a good 3 years before I even began to think, no, I want to be able to host another dinner party. And I was able to recognize, okay, I made a mistake, but that doesn't define me. I think we said, if I were a chef, I would have mistakes. So it doesn't define me. It was just a moment in time. And I guess if you think about it as I don't have a time machine, so I can't go back and change it. So what I can do is the next time, or leading up to whatever that goal may be, I can, try a different way or, really just keep moving forward and it's okay. Right. Part of self-doubt, I will say part of self-doubt kind of comes from just like the development of like shame. Right. So in my example, I did feel embarrassed. I felt shame that, okay, I didn't catch this small thing. And, now my friend is bringing it up. Why is she bringing it up? Right. So, really just practicing that forgiveness.
Yeah.
And the first piece is that is taking care of yourself, practicing self-care. I guess I put different labels to different things. So like for me, self-care, um, you know, oftentimes I think, that's a buzzword. So the way I like to express, when I talk about self-care is talking my self-need. So what am I needing in that point in time? It's the same exact thing, but it really, for me, it resonates for me to say, my self need? How am I meeting my needs in this given point in time?
Mhm.
Um, and with that, it does help, make you feel more confident in that moment, and just really capable of getting back out there. Like, okay, I made this mistake. Now I can do something else.
I love the idea of getting back out there. Just
Yeah.
it's so interesting what language can help us do, how it can help us shift behaviorally or emotionally. And that seems to be a lot of what this is that you're saying, right? And so,
Oh yeah.
a lot of that self-doubt can lead to avoidant behavior or things like this. And so this is kind of coaching to overcome that hurdle. So the things that you liked doing, but you maybe just made a mistake, like you said, this is a way to kind of not lose out on being able to continue those activities or behaviors or things like that. Let me ask you this. If somebody is sitting across from you or maybe listening to this and they're like, but this is really hard for me to do. Like, I've heard people talk about this, I've tried, and like, I just can't seem to do it well. Do you have any like additional insights or tips or tricks for people who are like, I know I need to do this. I know, but I just can't?
Yeah, I can use my own example
Okay.
as really just having having that time, knowing that this will take time.
Okay.
So um just really doing that. Now, if you will go to the next slide,
Sure.
actually.
Yep. Give me a minute
Yeah,
to register that I want to go to the next slide.
yeah, yeah. I mean, there are steps, um, but the first thing is that part of like this is you're building this. This is if you think I'm building an empire here, but
Okay.
really just cultivating that because it, especially if you're beginning this, if you've had kind of like a garden of self doubt for a while, I mean, it's going to take you time to cultivate that soil and just kind of I want to say, well, I guess in a way, like manipulate those thoughts, right? Because if you have been experiencing those self doubt thoughts, excuse me, for so long, it's like pushing a boulder. It's going to take a lot of time of manipulation to mold it to what you need. Um, so that's leading to the cultivating of self-care. So some of those things that do, if you are practicing often, first would be that practicing the gratitude. So reflecting on the things that you love about yourself. Yeah, your strengths, right? Your biggest strengths. I like to spend a lot of time, especially working with clients, like really exploring values and strengths. And what I've learned, even for myself, that it's really hard, like because we don't often spend a lot of time with that self reflection piece. So practicing gratitude really does help in that. It helps turn that eye just internally to where you can see those just unique aspects of yourself, right? Just developing that positive mindset. Um, one thing, and it doesn't have to be big, it doesn't have to be something extensive that you do, but just even if it's a daily, like at the beginning of the day or at the end of the day, pulling out one positive thing that you're grateful for, something that, just for that day, well, at this, um, this X thing happened
Mhm.
and I was able to do this, or, I really appreciate, this or whatever that is. Just in in my example of the dinner party, one of the things that was helpful for me was really pulling out the fact that I did have friends who showed up and they did stick around, even though this for me, it was at that time devastating, right? Just not being able to produce what I had in my mind, this meal, what I had in my mind.
Mhm.
So practicing those moments of no, I have friends that are supportive and things like that. So it can be really small, or it can be, as you're practicing those gratitudes, it can be something. even larger.
Yeah.
But it's just,
I'd love to interrupt just for a minute to talk about
yeah.
gratitude from kind of like a neuroscience perspective. I really wish I had screenshot the thing that I saw, but a daily gratitude practice, even like you said, that's pretty, it doesn't have to be meditating on gratitude for an hour, right? Which I think it is something that deters a lot of people, is kind of the idea of how big the practice has to be. But even a small gratitude practice, the amount it brings down your cortisol, which is your stress hormone, is statistically significant, which I think is a big part of this, because then if you're also just not as stressed, mistakes don't make you more stressed because your baseline is lower. And so it's also kind of just a like brain science hack that you just don't get on your own back as much if you're just less stressed. And this is a pretty easy way to be less stressed. I don't know how often you hear this with your clients, but I have a decent amount of clients who sometimes say, like, I'm not ready to try meds yet. Like, I feel like there's something else I should be trying or could be trying. And I'll be open to meds if these other things don't work, but can you give me a few other things? And this is one of them, right? Like, this is kind of that low hanging fruit that a lot of people want, kind of that chill pill that people might tease about, or is there just something? And it's like, this is the something. This is the something.
Yeah. Yeah. And it does seem so small, but yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to get a medal for it, or, something so big, right?
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
and yeah, and it does help. It just, even with the practicing the gratitude, it does help with like the second component of celebrating those accomplishments. They lead into that, because if you can recognize those, and reflect those, even those small little things that you're grateful for, you can actually clear the weeds to see, okay, you know what, actually, I have had an achievement. I am proud of myself for doing even the smallest little thing. I know, just really, like, it's like a good pat on the back,
Mhm.
right? And I'm sure we all have experienced, like in childhood, going through like sports and getting the ribbon, how that made you feel, right? So yeah, just having that space and time of recognizing, like, no, I have made this achievement. And then the third thing is the setting those healthy boundaries. And I also do a lot with, with clients with boundaries. And one thing that, we talk about the external boundaries, but there's also boundaries within that we
Mm.
have for ourselves. So learning to say, okay, you know, within yourself, okay, well, no, I just, even with the example of, same example, right? So I had to set a boundary for myself, because um, it went full spectrum, where it was, I want to try this, and then I was really afraid, because my self-doubt, really afraid of doing it again. But so I adjusted my boundary again, to where, I was looking at it as, I really want to do this. And we're on the next slide, we're going to talk about why I really wanted to get out there and try again. But my boundary shifted in the sense of, I knew that I really wanted to do it. And it helped me, like, generate, well, how can I achieve this goal? So I created a boundary in that example of, I knew the first time that I hosted this party, it was like, okay, I'm going to make this dish and I'm just going to wing it, right? I'm just going to throw everything in it, and didn't taste good. So that's okay. So I knew, like, okay, for my next thing, what I need in this moment is to have a plan, and have a recipe that I can follow. And for me, it sounds kind of, I like to put things, like, just put things together, but for me, that was a good boundary for myself. Is it created, okay, I'm not going to just float off, you know, I guess, wing my next dinner party. But I am going to have a plan in place, because I think that will make me feel good in that moment. It will create a sense of, a sense of accomplishment, if I can follow all the steps and get the results that I'm looking for. If that makes any sense. right?
Yeah, well, and I really love just like the idea of setting boundaries with yourself, right? Because so often, and it is so important to talk about boundaries with other people, but if you're not doing a good job with yourself, it's really, I mean, that can just be like a difference that makes a difference is boundaries with yourself.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And then if you go to the next step, I will tell you why or how. So, so in that, that piece of nurturing the self-image. So the first thing I have is reflecting on those values and strengths. Um, and yes, like when you're practicing those gratitudes, like um, that gratefulness, really, really focusing on those strengths. Um, that can be that place and time where um, you're pulling those out for yourself and recognizing that. For me, reflecting on like with my dinner party example, just reflecting on my values. Like I came to a point of just really questioning, why is this important to me? Why was it important that um, you know, I had my friends there. And what I really came up with in questioning and reflecting on my value was, well, number one value is family. And to me, family, not only, humans that I share DNA with, but my created family. And essentially, that dinner party, why it was so important and why my goal was to create something so impactful, positively impactful for me, was because I wanted to give to my family. I wanted to have them have an experience that was memorable in a positive way, right? And so when it wasn't, when my expectation didn't align, that created that self-doubt. But by reflecting on that, I was able to see, okay, my value is family. And by taking that, this is my why. I could shift to that positive, right? Like, of course, my values are the same as they were then and now. And so that's how I was able to like get back out there, get back on the horse because my value was still the same. Family is very important to me, making those connections. And, um, you know, this was the dinner party was really an outlet for that. Right. And so examining that value, but then also coupling it with my strength. And I'd say for the most part, my strength and just examine it is that connection, like that intimate connection with my family. So wanting to create that and wanting to like push through that self-doubt and to be able to provide this experience for my family was helpful in changing that positive or changing from that self-doubt to that that self well just that positivity in that example.
Yeah.
So yes, and the second step in that, so after you're reflecting on your values and strength, is that mindfulness, right? So when I was in the weeds of the self-doubt, I was spending a lot of time thinking about all the wrongs that were in that example, all the wrongs there. So with mindfulness, it's not a scary thing. It's also along the lines of that gratitude piece. And I think you could attest to this, Stephanie, just in terms of, it doesn't have to be a huge thing. It can be just really participating in mindfulness can be so so small and not time consuming. But really what it does is it focuses on that present moment and it creates that level of clarity and calmness. And it really kind of it does lend itself to that self-awareness piece that I was talking about earlier. But
Yeah.
yeah,
So
and then
the first
go ahead.
thing you're talking about is like you're keeping your true north, right? By having your values, you're keeping your true north, and things that might distract you from that, you're then able to kind of let go of because you were able to see like, no, I was able to execute that value. My creative family was here and they were still gathered and we had a great time. And yes, that mistake happened and I'd prefer it to not happen again, but that didn't detract from that value, that true north being expressed. but I'm still feeling a little rattled, a little razzled. So let me ground myself by using this mindfulness so that thought process can even become more clear and have a little bit more momentum behind it so it can settle in and then impact my emotional state from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, exactly. Yeah. And then the third step I have is that connection with supportive people. And I do think that this is important because even with the grounding and the reflection, it is so helpful to, as humans, we are social creatures and we do need that. Like we don't live in that vacuum, but really surrounding yourself with people who can encourage you or just be that, that side by side person. And really, as far as support, like who that supportive person can be. It could be a parent, it could be a sibling, it could be a friend, it could be a pet even, but it could, outside of that, it could be your therapist. Sometimes I have clients who, there's a lot on their plate that they really don't want to kind of involve, like loved ones and such. So they need that third party. And so
Yeah.
they really lean in with their
Yeah.
therapists. And yes, your therapist can be that person who not only can be your cheerleader and give you that encouragement, but also they can help you in those challenging times. When you are challenging those negative self-talk, like you might not even be conscious of it. And sometimes they can kind of help pull that out and help you see, okay, what maybe we need to do this or something like that. So those three components, like those action steps are so important.
Yeah.
But yeah. If you can go to the next slide. Oh, okay. I forgot we were in our conclusion, but essentially with the conclusion, I want to say the first thing is reminding yourself that yes, you are so worthy of acceptance, right? And of love. And even recognizing, I think I said earlier, you are your first best friend, right? Just coming from that mindset. So first having like in creating that self-love, knowing that yeah, you're worthy of it. Um, and then embracing those qualities that are so unique to you. We are in that, just we are, all of us are alike in so many ways, with the human experiences. I can kind of, you can match up human experiences, but with each individual, we each have something that we can bring to the plate that is vastly different from your neighbor or your mom or your friend. So just making sure that you're recognizing that yes, you are enough and you do have unique qualities within the human experience that makes you worthy of love and acceptance. And then, yeah, just really reminding yourself that life is a practice, right? And um, just I know you were talking earlier, Stephanie, about for you it's exercise. For me, it is. I think of like art and like just even like music. So if you first time playing a piano, you're not going to be. It's not going to sound the greatest, right? But once you learn chords, you can play it. But keep in mind that with each step, with each new song, there is there's always that progress and learning from that it won't always be the same. So knowing that you're starting at point A, even though it's not a straight line, just knowing that is the continual practice will make that progress that you're seeking. So nurturing that self-love, you know, accepting that it is a lifelong practice. It does take time. It does take, that effort. It can be a challenge, but yeah, I just step by step towards it. It's so needed.
Well,
And
and
yeah,
just to piggyback off of that really quick, like
mhm,
even though it's so a lot of people, I get it. When you're feeling really bad, you don't want to be patient. You don't want something that's progress. You want the easy fix. not the easy fix, but you just want the thing that's going to work right now because you just really need to feel better. You're so tired of feeling bad. And I will say to that person that engaging in something that takes progress is better, right? Because you're going to feel bad for a long time otherwise. So even if it takes long, you're at least then hopping on a path headed in the right direction. And so requiring patience of yourself is better than dealing with the negative emotions because you don't want to do the thing that takes patience. And I say that as somebody who doesn't have a lot of patience. And so I know it. But that's just kind of the caveat I would add to that. I know when you're feeling bad, you don't want the thing that takes a long time, but you're going to keep feeling bad unless you embark on the thing that takes a long time.
Right. Yeah. And also just even the like just having, that timeline, just even knowing that there will be
Yes.
peaks and plateaus. So you will have um moments where it feels like almost like a setback, like, oh, I guess that one phrase, like I understand it more now than when as a child, but that, one step ahead, two steps back, like it's definitely that. So just recognizing that, yeah, like just that continual, just keep going, really. And yeah, and then the last piece really of because if any other thing you kind of forget, just remember that you are not alone. There are so many people that, like I said, the human experience, like we all do experience that self-doubt from time to time, just in our lives. But knowing that, number one, that you are not the only person, that is not the unique part about you. There are great things that are unique to you, but not self-doubt. Self-doubt is just the human experience, and really just recognizing our reminding yourself of that, and just knowing that you have support, and seeking that support is something that you can do. Well,
Awesome.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and
So
then
yay.
just our quick slide here. Go ahead, Margaret.
Oh, I was just going to say, I was just going to thank everybody for hearing me ramble.
No, it was
Hopefully you've been
great.
snacking. But I will conclude what happened, just just coming back like full circle for my next dinner party. So, I was able to pick a recipe. I did do chocolate souffle for dessert.
Nicely
It was my
done.
first time. I know it was my first time, but I had my plan. I had a recipe. Of course, my second one, it was, like I said, 3 years. So not all the people that were at my first one were at my second one, but a lot. When I say a lot, I mean like 3 people or 3 to 4 people. They returned and it went great. But the main thing, not only like the food, but just like the atmosphere, and really, like my goal was creating an ambiance where I could have great discussion and laughter with the people that I love, my family, right? So I achieved it based on my strengths and my values. Um, Feedback was good too. So
Yeah. No,
yeah,
that was a great story to use throughout the presentation. So thank you for your willingness to share that. And yeah, if
sure.
anybody has questions or examples or they want to hear more about anything, feel free to drop it in the chat. Otherwise, if anything comes up in the future, feel free to reach out to us. There's several ways. You can always hop on our website, www.marblewellness.com. There's all kinds of links to how to connect with us there. You can, poke around our different pages on the website. You can always reach out to us via email. Our best email for that is hello@marblewellness.com. Or you can always reach us by phone, 636-234-3052. And no matter how you get in touch with us, we get back to you within one business day, often within the same day if it's in those business hours. So questions won't be left unanswered. And we're just happy to do whatever we can to help those in our community live a life that feels better and help you achieve the self-love and get rid of the self-doubt that you've been maybe struggling with for a few years. Margaret, thank you so much for this. I think this is such a relevant topic, no matter age, demographic, job. It's something, like you said, is so universal to the human experience. So really getting in there and presenting people with these very like real, tangible steps, I think is super helpful. So thank you for your time and expertise today.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks for joining everybody, like I said, live or watching back later. And we hope to hear from you sometime soon. Have a good rest of your day.
Okay. Thank you.